Hello, everyone. Welcome to Durrett's Take. I hope you all had a good weekend. Let's get started. So the interesting fact for the day is that last night the Clippers led the Jazz at some point in the game by 29 points. Yikes. So I do want to talk about different of the series so far in the NBA playoffs. And let's start off with the Jazz and Clippers. So that was as a Jazz fan, that was a frustrating game to watch last night. And it's interesting because they got blown out, lost by 14 points, which I'm surprised because it could have been more. But what's funny is that the box score really did, the stats didn't really say why they lost. Because when you look at stats, Clippers shot 46% from the field, Jazz shot 42%. Okay, close. Both shot exactly 40.5% from three. Jazz made 17 3-pointers, Clippers 15. They both shot 80+% from the free throw line. They both had the same exact amount of turnovers, which is 11. Now they Clippers had a few more rebounds, special offensive rebounds, and that's a very big problem for the Jazz because with Clippers playing small ball, this is a third game in a row that you've gotten out rebounded, and that's unacceptable. With Rudy Gobert there, like you should not be losing that battle. And that's just the team stats. But even when we look at the Bucks score, it's like Mitchell 37. Okay, that's what he's supposed to do. Joe Ingles 19, 7-9 shooting, 5-7 free throw line. That's good. Rudy Gobert 11 points, 8 rebounds, a little bit more, a little bit under, but good. But that round was average. Bogdanovich 18 points. Yeah, that's his average. Royce O'Neal 8 points, 8 rebounds. Yeah, that's what he does. Now Clarkson 8 points. Now that's a little bit low for him. Like that needs to be at least another 10 points or so. And then you look on the Clippers side, it's like Kawhi Leonard, 31 points. That's expected. Paul George, 31 points. A little high for him, but again, somewhat expected. And then that third star, that third banana, it's been Reggie Jackson, but this time it was Marcus Morris Sr. who scored 24 points. Again, there's always going to be that third banana for them mostly every night, so it's not a surprise. So then, well, why did the Jazz lose then? If most of these are now the same, and the reason why is because in the first quarter, the Jazz were down by 17 points. That scored 30-13 in the first quarter, and then the Jazz scored 7 second, and then gained 3 in the third, and gained 7 in the fourth. But that 17-point deficit in the first, that's what got them. And in a playoff game, it's very hard. I'm not saying comebacks are impossible. The Clippers came back against the Jazz in game two, before the Jazz eventually retained that and pulled away. And then even the Jazz came back in game one, Clippers up 13 at halftime, Jazz came back in that one. So comebacks are possible, but the problem is when you get down 20 plus, it is very hard to come back and win. So for the Jazz, they gotta start better. Now they're gonna go back home for Game Five, so maybe the home vibes is what they need because playing at Staples did not agree with them for some reason. But a lot of people are saying like if a lot of people picked the Clippers win series to begin with, whether it was 6 or 7. A lot of people are saying 6 now. They don't think the Jazz are going to win that game. For me, it depends. So for me, this all comes down to Mike Conley Jr. If he can come back for Game 5 and 6 and if 7 necessary, if he can play those 3 games, the Jazz I think will still win this series. Mainly because 2 of the games still need to play in Utah, and then Mike Conley will help the Jazz out somewhat defensively, but especially offensively, with his scoring and production, all that. So then that way it frees up things for Mitchell or specifically all the other role players that they can step up, which at home they usually do, at the least. So that's why I feel like they can still win the series. Now, I said Jazz is 6 start, but because of Mike Conley's injury, I didn't expect him to be out this long. Now I'm going to say Jazz in 7. But I'm not sure what's the deal with Mike Conley either because he was out, for the second half basically of Game 5 when they closed out Memphis, and they said that like if it was like a Game 7 scenario or something, like he could have continued playing, but obviously they had the game back already. They didn't want to risk it, and then it's he had 5 days off before Game 1, and then he was off Game 1. I'm like, okay, I thought it was enough, but okay, fine, whatever. And I thought, okay, but okay, I was like, okay, he might be back Game 2. Nope. I was like, oh, well, he can come back game three, but maybe not because they're up 2-0, and sure enough, he did it. And I was like, okay, after that blowout in game three, I was for sure he was going to play game four, especially since it's like, why come on the road trip if you're not even going to play? And then, sure enough, he didn't play game four. So now I'm very concerned and weird it out by the situation because, again, it's like he's been out for about 2 weeks now, and it's like, if he was able to play through the pain back in game five, if they wanted to play him out, then it's like, why not play him right now? I'm not sure if this is just a, Jazz, their trainers are specific safety precautions and all that, especially if, Donovan Mitchell was out game one against Memphis. I'm not sure if that's the deal, or or if Conley really can't go or something like that. Because if he can't go, then this is over the Jazz. But if this is just, the Jazz being extra cautious or something, now cautiousness needs to be thrown out the window because he needs to play game five and beyond. Because if not, the Jazz will lose the series. So it's up to the Jazz to decide, okay, do you want to use Conley's injury excuse to just now bow out now and focus on next year? Or use Conley and go on that title run like you're capable of, especially with the Nets and their injury problems, which I'll get to in a little bit. Like, this is the time for the Jazz to try to make a run in the postseason, not wait till next year. Especially, with LeBron and AD back crewed up on all that. And if Kawhi, stays with the Clippers, and that's going to be another good team. And then if CP3 stays with the Suns, then that'll be another low team. So it's going to be, and then Luka's probably going to get help, and Blazers might get better, and Golden State will be better with Klay Thompson coming back stuff. So, like, this is the year to try to advance the Jazz here. Okay, so now to talk about the Nets and Bucks series. So I thought, the Nets were going to defeat the Bucks season now with Kyrie Irving being injured in game four. And he's out game five for sure. And then Harden's doubtful for game five at this moment, but I assume he's not going to play. I assume they won't try to play him back unless they're in elimination mode, which game five they're not. So it's kind of interesting how the series has turned for the Bucks. And if you're the Bucks, you got to capitalize on this because if you just let KD single-handedly beat you, then that's pathetic and sad. You don't deserve to win the chip and deserve to blow the whole thing up in general. But now, if you're the Bucks, congratulations, you are basically going to win this series unless a miracle happens as far as Kyrie and Harden's health. So there you go. And I'll get to more injuries in a little bit. But I want to talk about the Hawks and Sixers now. So remember I said Sixers and 6, and right now I'm still going to hold by that, but I made him a little bit nervous now because as you saw him beat in that second half in game four, his knee was clearly bothering him, which that's a sign this is probably going to happen throughout the playoffs. Maybe he'll have some good hats, but as far as like completing whole games or completing whole series 100% is just not going to happen at this point. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, especially since Simmons can't shoot, Danny Green's out for a couple weeks, so you really have to rely on Curry, and then what was his name, Shelton guy, and then that European guy who can shoot threes. You have to kind of, and then Dwight Howard, like you have to kind of rely on those role type of players in order to advance. And if you're talking about role players, the Hawks actually have the better role players than the Sixers do. Even though the Sixers have more stars, more firepower, I would say I'll give the role players advantage to Orlando. So if you're Embiid, you gotta dominate, and if you're the Sixers, you can't make it about the role players because if you do, you're most likely going to lose the series and get upset. So those are my thoughts for those series. So again, I have Jazz in 7 now instead of 6 like I predicted. I have the Sixers still in 6, although I can see that going 7, and then I have the Bucks in 6 unless Kyrie and Harden are able to come back. So those are my new updated predictions there. So to now go over the injury history for the NBA playoffs this year, it's just super crazy. I'm not sure what the big deal is on why this is all of a sudden happening. I mean, maybe it's because the NBA decided to come back too early now and to cram 72 games into a condensed season. Maybe it's just a fluke. I'm not sure, but I've literally never seen the NBA playoffs this much, where there's so many injuries. Now I've seen finals, where there's a bunch of injuries. Toronto being Warriors without KD, Clay, Warriors being LeBron without Kyrie and Kevin Love. I've seen plenty of finals matchups at the very least without with injuries, but I never see one throughout the duration of the playoffs already. For example, I wrote down all the injuries that have happened. So as of currently right now, Harding's out right now. Currently, Kyrie Irving's out. Mike Conley's out. Donovan Mitchell's not 100%. Now you can add Kawhi Leonard to not being 100% after what it looked like happened to his knee last night. We'll see if he's okay. Maybe it was just a thing where he needs to rest the night up and he'll be fine. But we'll see. Joel Embiid clearly not 100%. Chris Paul, he was not 100% in the first round, but now he's better. But then you go Danny Green out for a couple weeks, like I mentioned earlier. You got certain role players like Dante DiVincenzo for the Bucks out for the season. You got Serge Ibaka out for the season. And then teams that are not in the playoffs anymore, but they had injuries back in the first round. Jamal Murray out for the season, Denver. Will Barton out for a lot of the games. LeBron James not 100%. Anthony AD out for some games like cost the Lakers. Luka Doncic not 100% for the series. Zach Collins out for Portland. Russell Westbrook not 100%. Bradley Beal not 100%. David Bertans out for the rest of the season. Jaylen Brown out for the rest of the season. Kemba Walker missed some games. So as you can see here, we said that last season the bubble was an asterisk, and that's true. It's an asterisk. It's a bubble, because as you see, like teams, like Miami, who flourished in the bubble, did not flourish this postseason. So that's definitely an asterisk. But I'm saying this season also kind of deserves an asterisk with all these injuries and all these players not being 100%. Now the 100%, not 100% one is not that's not as much of an excuse, because in the season teams are clearly not 100% at this point because you've gone through grueling seasons type of thing. But still, even with all the injuries or players being out, that's just crazy how many star players, as I mentioned, have been injured and all that. So hopefully next season we don't have as many injuries in the NBA, and specifically next playoffs we don't have any major injuries, because at this point, healthy team is going to win this year by default. So thank you very much for listening to my podcast today. Please subscribe to my channel and tell everyone about me. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful day.